Tiffany delivered on the goals of this project very, very well, and I was very impressed. The goal of the speech was to have very good structure. I'm sorry. I'm evaluating Jennifer, not Tiffany. I was supposed to originally evaluate Tiffany. That word is still in my head. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Jennifer delivered very well on the purposes of the speech. The goal of the speech was to have clear structure and clear objectives. And we saw general purpose. We saw a specific purpose. We saw a clear beginning, middle, and end. Not only did we know how she was going to take us through the speech and why she was a good person to talk about it, she actually told us how we can go about taking actions on the purposes that she outlined. And in fact, I would say that this was your strength over the other speakers that we saw today, the fact that there was impeccable structure. And I think the project helped you get there. Were you personable? Very personable. Were you natural? Very natural. When you were up there, it seemed as if you were just having a conversation with us or telling us a story at a table. And I think that is your key strength. And I've mentioned this to you before. You're a very natural storyteller. Now, how can you get better? I already said that you delivered on the objectives of the speech, but my goal here as the evaluator is not just to show how and why you've already achieved the objectives, but how you become a better speaker. And I think the thing that was lacking here most was a commanding presence. All right, so here's what you did when you came. Jake hadn't even walked off right from the beginning, and you just come up here and you just start talking to yourself. Right. And you start say a few sentences, and then eventually you come out. And at this point, like 2 or 3, 4 sentences in, I realized that you're giving your speech and you've already started, right? And that's okay. It feels natural because that's how people act, but it does not command attention. And here's the thing. Public speaking is a daring thing. It is not a timid thing. You've already asked so many people for their time and for their attention, right? And now you come up here and you're being timid. That's just not an okay thing to do. It's very contrary to what the whole exercise is. And the jarringness is felt by the audience. So when you come up here, you have to be very bold. You cannot have a poorly marked beginning. You cannot look down a lot as you did. Sure, it felt very thoughtful, but it also wasn't that engaging. You had a flat vocal tone. Go up and down more. That's part of how you have a more commanding vocal presence. And then finally, you should have more intentional physical presence, right? Why you're going into different places, why you're doing it, why are you moving your arms. There should be a purpose to all of those things, right? And that is where Tiffany, I think, I've shown you. So there was a very good contrast that we saw between the last 2 speeches. I'm going to evaluate Tiffany just a little bit because I was going to initially. And it wasn't exactly this. I think they both excelled at 2 different things, and they did them very well, but they were entirely opposite. I think Jennifer nailed structure, but didn't necessarily have a very commanding presence. And then Tiffany came up here and did exactly the opposite, or a bit the opposite, where she had a very commanding presence and I was engaged with every single word, but the structure wasn't quite as impeccable as yours.